The air in the storeroom was thick with the smell of old rice sacks, rat poison, and something metallic. My own fear, perhaps. A single bulb dangled from the ceiling on a frayed wire, swinging every time the air conditioner in the main house kicked on. As if mocking us, my husband, Raghav, lay on a torn mattress we had dragged in years ago for servants who never stayed. His breathing was wet and shallow. Each rasp sounded like it might be the last. I pressed my ear to the locked iron door. Outside, I could still hear the faint echo of laughter. My son Arjun and his wife Neha toasting with their friends before they left for the airport. 2 weeks in Europe, darling, Neha had trilled, loud enough for us to hear. Let the old relics rot in peace. The key had turned with a deliberate click. Then silence. Then the roar of their SUV fading away. I am 72 years old. My name is Kamini Sharma. And right now, crouched on this cold floor with my dying husband, I am telling you our story because someone, somewhere, needs to know that even mothers can be betrayed so completely that death feels kinder than the life their child gave them. If this is the first time you are meeting me, please don't look away yet. Hit that subscribe button, drop a heart, and comment the name of the city or town you're reading from tonight. London, New York, Sydney, Toronto, Mumbai, wherever you are, because this story is for every parent who ever signed a paper out of love, and for every child who is tempted to forget where they came from. Let me take you back to the beginning. I was born in 1953 in a small town near the Yamuna River. My father taught Hindi literature. My mother stitched clothes for neighbors and still managed to keep a small tulsi plant alive on our veranda. We were not rich, but we were rich in stories. Every evening my father would read out Premchand or Tagore while my mother rolled rotis. And I would sit between them feeling like the safest girl in the world. Raghav entered my life when I was 19. He was tall, quiet, wore round spectacles, and spoke as though every word had been weighed on a scale. He was posted in Delhi with the railways. Our marriage was arranged within 3 weeks. My mother cried happy tears because the boy's family had brought only a single gold bangle instead of demanding a scooter. We started our life in a one-room barsati in Carol Bagh. I cooked on a kerosene stove. He carried files home and worked till midnight. When Arjun was born in 1976, Raghav held him and wept without sound, tears falling on the newborn's forehead like silent blessings. Those early years were hard, but they were honest. We saved every rupee. By the time Arjun was 10, Raghav had risen to senior section engineer and we moved to a 2-bedroom government quarter in RK Puram. Arjun went to a good school, wore proper leather shoes, and called me Mummy in that milky voice that made my heart melt every single time. I want you to picture this, because this is the boy I loved with every cell in my body. A child who once refused to eat until I sat beside him. A boy who, at age 7, saved his birthday money to buy me a plastic rose because he heard me say real roses were too expensive. That boy grew up. He cleared G. Went to the best engineering college. Then MBA. We sold my mother's last pair of gold bangles to pay the fees. Raghav took loans. Worked overtime. Aged 10 years in 5. We told ourselves, this is what parents do. We give our children wings. In 2007 Arjun brought Neha home. She was beautiful the way city magazines are beautiful. Sharp cheekbones. Perfect English. A laugh that filled rooms. Her father owned half the mills in Surat. I remember touching her head in blessing and thinking, my son has chosen well. The wedding cost us everything we had saved for our old age. 40 lakh rupees. I still remember the pandit asking for an extra envelope for the gods. Neha's mother looked at our simple house and said loudly, Arjun Beta, after marriage we will renovate everything. Can't have my daughter living like this. I smiled. Mothers smile through everything. 6 months later, the first demand came sweetly wrapped. Neha wanted to start a designer boutique. Just 5 crores seed capital. Mummy G. Arjun says you have it lying in fixed deposits. She touched my feet theatrically. Raghav and I looked at each other. The money was meant for our medical emergencies. For a quiet old age. But Arjun knelt before us that night. Please, Papa, Ma, this is the last time I'll ask. After this we will take care of you forever. We broke the deposits, paid tax penalties, transferred the money. The boutique never opened. The money vanished into brand collaborations and Milan fabric trips. When I asked gently, Neha laughed. Mummy G, you won't understand modern business. Leave it to us. I left it. That was mistake number 1. Please stay with me. Part 2 will take you into the house that became my prison. The parties where I served tea in my own home while wearing an apron that said, head maid, and the first time my son looked me in the eye and lied so smoothly I almost believed him. Comment, I'm still here, and tell me where you're reading from. Your messages are the only thing keeping this 72-year-old woman company tonight. The storeroom bulb has been dead for 3 days now. In the darkness, Raghav's breathing is the only clock I have left. Sometimes it stops for so long I lean over him, terrified, until the next wet rattle proves he is still on this side of the veil. I hold his hand and count the hours by the ache in my own knees. This is how I measure time now. Pain and waiting. I promised you the next chapter of our story. And I will keep that promise even if these words are the last thing I ever write. After the wedding money vanished, the house began to change around us like a slow-moving earthquake. It started innocently enough. Neha wanted better aesthetics. The cream walls I had chosen with Raghav in 1995 were painted a cold Parisian grey. My brass Ganesha on the entrance console was replaced by a crystal Buddha that cost more than my entire wedding jewelry. The old rosewood dining table where Arjun had done his homework was sold on some app for vintage value and replaced with a 12-seater Italian marble monstrosity that seated exactly 2 people. Most nights, Arjun and Neha, I told myself, let them be happy. It's only paint. Only furniture. Then came the power of attorney. It was a Sunday in March 2015. Raghav's left hand had started trembling more than usual. Arjun arrived with a thick folder and 2 witnesses. Men I had never seen before. He laid the papers on the new marble table like a magician revealing cards. Papa, your signature is getting difficult. All these bank visits, property tax, company filings. I'm handling everything anyway. Just sign this general power of attorney. It will save you effort. Raghav looked at me. I remember the exact expression. Uncertainty mixed with the old pride that refused to admit weakness. Arjun knelt, touched his feet. Papa, please. I want to take your burden. Raghav signed. I signed below him as witness. My pen moved across the paper the way it had moved across Arjun's school admission forms. 35 years earlier. With love, with trust, with the belief that blood protects blood. Within 6 months every single property was transferred into a private trust called Sharma Family Welfare Trust. The sole managing trustee, Arjun Sharma. The beneficiaries, Arjun and Neha. Raghav and I were listed as life interest holders. Whatever that meant, I only understood when the society office sent a letter addressing Arjun as the owner of bungalow number 42. I asked Arjun one evening when Neha was at the gym. Beta, the house is in your name now? Quote, he didn't even look up from his phone. Ma, it's just for tax planning. Everything is still ours. You worry too much. That was the first time he called me you instead of Ma. The parties began soon after. Neha's friends were a different species. Women who pronounced water as water, and men who wore loafers without socks. Every Saturday the house filled with perfume and loud music. The staff, now hired by Neha, were given crisp black uniforms with the boutique logo none of us had ever seen launched. The first time she handed me an apron, I thought it was a joke. It was black, knee-length, with white piping and "Head of Household Services" embroidered on the chest pocket. She held it out with a bright smile. "Mummy G, wear this when you supervise the serving. It looks professional." "Nah." I laughed nervously. "Neha, I'm not staff." "Of course not." She kissed my cheek. "But the caterer keeps confusing you with the helpers because of your cotton saris. This will make it clear you're in charge." I wore it because Arjun was standing behind her, watching. That night 40 guests watched me carry trays of avocado toast and cold-pressed juice while Neha announced proudly, "Meet my Mill. She's amazing at managing everything so I can focus on my brand." Someone filmed it. The clip went viral on some rich kid's Instagram with the caption, "Joint family goals red heart." Raghav sat in a corner, his walker folded beside him like a broken bird. When I passed with another tray he caught my wrist gently. "Kamini, this is wrong." I smiled the way I had learned to smile. "It's just one evening." "Raghav, it was never just one evening. Every weekend became a performance. I was made to wear the apron, pin my hair in a severe bun, and stand at the entrance greeting guests with folded hands while Neha introduced me as our in-house events head. So authentic, right? Quote. Guests laughed. Some patted my cheek like I was a well-trained pet. One woman in a diamond choker actually asked, "How much salary do you pay her? She's so obedient." Neha answered before I could open my mouth. "Oh, she doesn't need salary. She's family." Quote. Roars of laughter. I went to the kitchen that night and cried into the sink while scrubbing burnt cheese off imported plates. The maid, a girl from Jharkhand who earned 12,000 a month, put her hand on my shoulder. "Didi, don't cry. At least you have a place to sleep." I wanted to tell her I no longer had a bedroom. We had been moved to the guest room on the ground floor because the master suite upstairs is for when investors stay over. Raghav's medicines started disappearing. The neurologist had prescribed a cocktail that cost 45,000 a month. One day the strip of Sindopa was simply not there. When I asked Neha, she shrugged. "We're a little tight this month. His Parkinson's is stable anyway." Stable. My husband's hands shook so badly he couldn't hold a glass without spilling. Stable. I began hiding tablets in my blouse like contraband. In 2021 Raghav had a minor stroke. He was in ICU for 9 days. The bill came to 11 lakhs. Arjun paid it, but when Raghav came home in an ambulance, Neha met us at the door with a spreadsheet. "Papa, we love you, but we can't keep spending like this. From now on, home care only." The physiotherapist who came twice a week was reduced to once a month. The night nurse was fired. Raghav began wetting the bed because no one answered his bell after 9 p.m. One night I found him trying to clean himself with his bare hands, tears running down his cheeks. "Kamini," he whispered, "I have become a burden." I held him until dawn, rocking him the way I once rocked Arjun when he had fever at age 4. The next morning Neha handed me a packet of adult diapers. "Use these. Less laundry." I wanted to slap her. Instead I folded my hands and said, "Thank you, beta," because that is what broken mothers do. By 2023 we were living in the servant quarter behind the kitchen. A 10 by 10 room with a leaking toilet and no ventilation. Our clothes hung on nails. My wedding sari was wrapped in plastic and stuffed under the bed because there was no almirah. Arjun renovated the house again. Infinity pool on the terrace. Home theater. Gym. The cost, 4 crores. Source: the last commercial plot in Noida that still had Raghav's name on it before the power of attorney swallowed it. The pool inauguration party was the worst. 200 guests. A DJ from Goa. Champagne fountains. I was made to wear a uniform this time. Proper black shirt and trousers. With a name tag that read, Kamini, house manager. I served drinks till 4 a.m. My feet bled inside the cheap shoes Neha had bought one size bigger for comfort. At one point Arjun, drunk, arm around Neha, raised a toast to the woman who made all this possible. My beautiful wife. Quote, applause. He never even glanced at the old woman carrying empty bottles to the bin. That night Raghav looked at me with eyes that had already started saying goodbye. Kamini, he rasped. I kept one door hidden. One key. For a day like this. I thought he was delirious. I did not know he was telling the exact truth. I'm stopping here because my hands are shaking and the phone battery is low. Raghav just coughed. I need to turn him. Part 3 will take you into the final betrayal. The day they packed our small bags, led us to the storeroom to show new luggage and turned the key while smiling. Comment, still with you. Amma, and tell me where you are reading from tonight. Your messages are the light in this darkness. The darkness in this storeroom has weight now. It presses on my eyelids like wet cotton. Day 6. Or maybe 7. I have stopped counting. Raghav's breath has turned into a soft whistle. The way wind moves through a broken window. I keep a palm on his chest to make sure the rise and fall has not stopped forever. Every time his heart beats, it feels like a small miracle granted only because I am still here to witness it. I promised you part 3. And promises are the only currency left to an old woman who has nothing else. Let me take you to the week everything ended. It was the middle of August 2025. Delhi was drowning in monsoon heat that felt like steam from a pressure cooker. Arjun and Neha had been planning their big Europe reset for months. Neha kept saying it on speakerphone loud enough for the whole house to hear. 2 weeks of no desi drama. Darling. Just us. The Alps. And 0 aunties asking why we don't have kids yet. I smiled when she said it. The way I had trained myself to smile at every cruelty. On the 10th of August they called us to the living room. The new living room with the 12-seater sofa that cost more than my father's lifetime salary. Raghav walked with his walker. I held his elbow. We looked like 2 museum pieces being moved for cleaning. Neha was glowing in a white linen dress. Arjun wore sunglasses indoors, the way their friends did. Surprise. Neha clapped. We are leaving for Europe on the 18th. Switzerland, Italy, France. The works. You both must be so excited for us. Raghav managed a nod. I folded my hands and said, God bless you, beta. Then came the part that made the hairs on my neck rise. We don't want you to feel lonely, Arjun said. So we've arranged everything. Food, medicines, AC, the works. You'll be absolutely comfortable. Neha handed each of us a small suitcase. We even bought you new luggage. Come, let's go to the storeroom. I want to show you how spacious they are. I should have smelt the trap. But when your own child hands you a gift, the heart refuses to believe the hand can harm. We followed them down the corridor, past the kitchen where I once made Arjun's favorite aloo paratha every Sunday, past the staircase I had climbed a million times carrying his school bag when he was too lazy. The storeroom door was already open. Inside, the single bulb glowed weakly. 2 brand new suitcases stood in the center like soldiers waiting for inspection. Neha opened one. See, Mummiji? So much space. You can keep your saris here if you want to reorganize. I stepped in. Raghav followed. Slow, trusting. Arjun's voice came from behind us. Suddenly flat, almost bored. Okay, lock it. The iron door slammed. The key turned twice. For one full second I thought it was a prank. I even laughed. Arjun. Beta. Open the door. Papa needs his evening medicine. Silence. Then Neha's voice. Sweet and poisonous through the metal. Mummy G. Relax. We've kept water, biscuits, and a bucket. 2 weeks only. Think of it as a detox from all the tension you both create. When we come back, maybe you'll learn to behave. Raghav lurched toward the door, banging with his weak fist. Arjun. Open this at once. I am your father. Quote. Arjun laughed. Actually laughed. Papa. Fathers who transfer everything to their sons don't get to give orders anymore. Enjoy your retirement. Their footsteps moved away. I heard Neha say, let's take a selfie before we leave for the airport tomorrow. Caption. Off to find peace with a mountain emoji. Then music started upstairs. Loud. Celebratory. That first night was when my screaming began. On the second day Raghav's fever began. On the third morning the medicines ran out. On the fourth night I cleaned him with the only towel we had. On the fifth night he hallucinated. Kamini. Behind the rice sacks. There is a door. I moved the sacks. I pushed the panel. I found the stairs. 32 steps later. I opened the gate. It was 3:17 a.m. The air smelled of wet earth and freedom. Police. Hospital. Headlines. Arrest in Zurich. But the real earthquake was still coming. I will tell you everything in part 4. With whatever life is left in me. Kamini. The milkman who found us at 3:30 a.m. was the same boy who used to deliver milk to our house when Arjun was in class 6. His name is Raju. He is 40 now. Married. With 2 daughters. When he saw me lying in the muddy lane with Raghav half dead in my arms, he fell to his knees and cried like a child. Amma, how did this happen to you? Quote. He lifted Raghav into the back of his van as gently as if he were carrying his own father. Then he wrapped his own jacket around my shoulders and drove straight to the police station in Greater Kailash. The night duty officer took one look at us and made the call that changed everything. By 6 a.m. the house was swarming with police. They broke open the storeroom door and filmed everything. The bucket of human waste. The empty water bottle. The torn mattress soaked in urine. The single packet of biscuits with teeth marks from rats. They found the smashed phones. The thrown away medicines. The Europe tickets on the dressing table next to a bottle of Dom Perignon. By 8 a.m. the story was on every news channel. By noon the airport immigration had been alerted. By 4 p.m. Arjun and Neha were detained at Zurich airport. Their photographs in handcuffs went viral before sunset. But this part of the story is not about their arrest. This part is about the secret Raghav kept for 26 years. While Raghav fought for his life in the ICU of Max Saket, a lady inspector asked me about hidden bank accounts and property. I remembered the tiny key stitched inside my old purse. Raghav had given it to me in 2008. If anything ever feels wrong, go to Standard Chartered, Connaught Place, locker 428. Ask for Mr. D'Souza. Tell him the mountain door is open. With police escort, I went to the bank. Mr. D'Souza was waiting. Inside locker 428 were 3 things. The villa papers in Lonavala in my name. Swiss deposits worth 18.4 crores. And a letter from Raghav. My dearest Kamini, sometimes a husband must protect his wife even from their own child. That evening the money was transferred to my name. The police attached every other asset of Arjun and Neha. 3 days later Arjun was brought for a supervised hospital visit. Ma, forgive me. You left your father to die. That is not fear. That is murder with extra days. He begged. I did not move. That was the last time I saw my son outside prison. Raghav opened his eyes the next morning. When I placed the Lonavala key in his palm, he cried. 3 weeks later we left Delhi. My husband kept one door hidden for 26 years. That door saved our lives. We reached Lonavala on a cool October morning. The tulsi pot was waiting. That night I lit a diya. For the first time in 15 years. No one called me to serve tea. Part 5 will tell you about the trial, the court, and the letters from Tihar. I am no longer in the storeroom. I am home. The first morning in Lonavala smelled of wet pine and fresh cow dung from the village below. I woke before sunrise, the way I have done all my life, and found Raghav already awake in his wheelchair by the window. He was staring at the mist as though he could not believe it was real. When I touched his shoulder, he lifted his good hand and placed it over mine. No words, but the pressure of his fingers said everything. We made it. We are here. I made tea on a small gas stove. 2 steel glasses. No tray. No one waiting to be served. I sat beside him on the veranda floor the way we once sat in our first rented room. For the first time in 15 years I cried without hiding my face. This is the story of the trial, the courtroom, and the day I finally looked my son in the eye and felt nothing at all. The case was heard in Saket District Court. The prosecution had everything. The hidden CCTV footage, the forensic reports, the WhatsApp messages, the milkman's testimony, my broken body, Raghav's near-fatal sepsis. The defense called it a prank. Then the judge asked one question. If it was a prank, why was the night nurse removed? Why was the doorbell disconnected? Why was the watchman sent away? Silence. Neha cried in court. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. The sound of her empty arms falling was heard in the entire courtroom. Arjun begged. I was called for my statement. Your Honor, this boy once cried for 3 days when his pet bird flew away. That same boy left his father to die. I have no forgiveness left. Only one request: let the law teach him the value of the life he tried to throw away. The verdict came on 15 November 2025. Arjun Sharma, 10 years rigorous imprisonment. Neha Sharma, 7 years imprisonment. Both fined 50 lakh rupees. Outside the court I said only one line. My husband kept one door hidden for 26 years. Today the court opened another. The door to justice. That evening in Lonavala I planted a new tulsi sapling. Raghav smiled for the first time since the stroke. Since then, the letters come every Thursday from Tihar jail. I keep them unopened. Some nights Raghav wakes gasping. I hold him. We sit under the stars in silence. Only the two of us. And the mountains. Part 6 will be quieter. I am no longer the woman in the storeroom. I am the woman on the hill, waiting for morning. The monsoon has left Lonavala. November mornings are cold enough for a shawl. But the sun climbs quickly and turns the valley gold by 9 o'clock. Every day now begins the same way. I wake at 5, light a small diya in front of the tulsi, and sit with my tea until the caretaker's wife brings fresh milk. Raghav sleeps longer these days. The doctors say it is the mountain air and the absence of fear. His body is repairing itself in the only way left to it. Slow, stubborn, silent. This part of the story is about the quiet after the storm. About small mercies, new routines. In the evening I finally opened Arjun's first letter. The physiotherapist, Sunil, arrives at 8:30 sharp. He is 28, gentle, and calls Raghav, sir, even though Raghav can only answer with his eyes. Sunil lifts him from the bed the way one lifts a child and settles him into the wheelchair. Then the exercises begin. Fingers opening and closing, ankles rotating, neck turning toward the light. Raghav hates every minute of it, but he never complains. When the session ends, Sunil wipes the sweat from his forehead and says, "Sir, today you held the ball for 12 seconds. Yesterday it was 9. Raghav's good eye shines with something close to pride. After physiotherapy, I wheel him to the veranda that faces the valley. There is an easel waiting. One afternoon, 3 weeks after we arrived, Raghav pointed at it with his good hand. He wanted the watercolor set I had bought in Delhi 30 years ago and never used. Now he paints every morning. His left hand is useless, so he holds the brush between the first two fingers of his right like a child holding a crayon. The pictures are simple: a blue mountain, a yellow sun, a tiny square house with a red roof. Sometimes he adds 2 stick figures holding hands. He never signs them. He just looks at me when he finishes and waits for my nod. I pin every painting on the living room wall. We have 27 so far. The wall is beginning to look like a child's classroom. On Saturdays the village schoolchildren come. There are 12 of them, aged 6 to 10, barefoot and bright-eyed. Their teacher heard our story from the newspapers and asked if they could visit the brave Amma and the silent Baba. The first time they came, they stood in a nervous line holding marigold garlands. Raghav cried without sound. I told them stories about a little boy who once flew kites on India Gate lawns and lost 3 of them in one afternoon. They laughed and asked for more. Now every Saturday they bring drawings of their own. Stick figures of me pushing a wheelchair up a rainbow. I keep those drawings in a separate folder labeled My New Grandchildren. I have learned to cook again. Not for 40 guests. Not under someone else's orders. But for 2 old people who finally eat when they are hungry and leave what they do not want. Sometimes I make only aloo jeera and curd because that is what Raghav can swallow easily. Sometimes I make gajar halwa just to watch his eyes close in pleasure. The kitchen smells of my mother again. And yet, every Thursday the postman still brings the envelope from Tihar. For weeks I left them sealed in the steel box. Then one Thursday in late October, the tulsi plant put out its first new leaves after transplanting. Something shifted inside me. That evening, after Raghav was asleep, I took the box to the veranda, lit a diya, and opened the first letter. It was dated 20th September 2025. Arjun wrote about the cold floor, the tasteless doll, the bars on the window, Neha in the women's jail, the stitching work, the small prison temple, his prayers, his request for 1 line in return. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and cried until the diya went out. More letters came, each longer, each rawer. He asked for nothing but one sign that I still considered him my son. On 15th November, Raghav rolled his wheelchair to the temple room. He held up a painting, 2 stick figures flying a yellow kite. Under it, written in shaky letters, 1 word, Arjun. He pointed to the steel box. For the first time in 26 years of marriage, Raghav was asking me to forgive. I told him, he has to earn the door, not just knock on it. That night I wrote my son 8 lines. I told him about the painting, about the tulsi, about the 15 seconds. I told him I had not forgiven, but I had started remembering the little boy with the lost parrot. 3 weeks later his reply came. He cried. He enrolled to teach other prisoners. He remembered how to patch a kite. He said he would wait as long as the tulsi grows. I showed Raghav the letter. He pressed it to his forehead. Outside, the mountains stood quiet. Part 7 ends here. The door is still closed, but the key is now in my hand. The monsoon has left Lonavala. November mornings are cold enough for a shawl, but the sun climbs quickly and turns the valley gold by 9 o'clock. Every day now begins the same way. I wake at 5, light a small diya in front of the tulsi, and sit with my tea until the caretaker's wife brings fresh milk. Raghav sleeps longer these days. The doctors say it is the mountain air and the absence of fear. His body is repairing itself in the only way left to it. Slow, stubborn, silent. This part of the story is about the quiet after the storm. About small mercies, new routines. In the evening I finally opened Arjun's first letter. The physiotherapist, Sunil, arrives at 8:30 sharp. He is 28, gentle, and calls Raghav, sir, even though Raghav can only answer with his eyes. Sunil lifts him from the bed the way one lifts a child and settles him into the wheelchair. Then the exercises begin. Fingers opening and closing, ankles rotating, neck turning toward the light. Raghav hates every minute of it, but he never complains. When the session ends, Sunil wipes the sweat from his forehead and says, "Sir, today you held the ball for 12 seconds. Yesterday it was 9. Raghav's good eye shines with something close to pride. After physiotherapy, I wheel him to the veranda that faces the valley. There is an easel waiting. One afternoon, 3 weeks after we arrived, Raghav pointed at it with his good hand. He wanted the watercolor set I had bought in Delhi 30 years ago and never used. Now he paints every morning. His left hand is useless, so he holds the brush between the first 2 fingers of his right like a child holding a crayon. The pictures are simple: a blue mountain, a yellow sun, a tiny square house with a red roof. Sometimes he adds 2 stick figures holding hands. He never signs them. He just looks at me when he finishes and waits for my nod. I pin every painting on the living room wall. We have 27 so far. The wall is beginning to look like a child's classroom. On Saturdays the village schoolchildren come. There are 12 of them, aged 6 to 10, barefoot and bright-eyed. Their teacher heard our story from the newspapers and asked if they could visit the brave Amma and the silent Baba. The first time they came, they stood in a nervous line holding marigold garlands. Raghav cried without sound. I told them stories about a little boy who once flew kites on India Gate lawns and lost 3 of them in one afternoon. They laughed and asked for more. Now every Saturday they bring drawings of their own. Stick figures of me pushing a wheelchair up a rainbow. I keep those drawings in a separate folder labeled My New Grandchildren. I have learned to cook again. Not for 40 guests. Not under someone else's orders. But for 2 old people who finally eat when they are hungry and leave what they do not want. Sometimes I make only aloo jeera and curd because that is what Raghav can swallow easily. Sometimes I make gajar halwa just to watch his eyes close in pleasure. The kitchen smells of my mother again. And yet, every Thursday the postman still brings the envelope from Tihar. For weeks I left them sealed in the steel box. Then one Thursday in late October, the tulsi plant put out its first new leaves after transplanting. Something shifted inside me. That evening, after Raghav was asleep, I took the box to the veranda, lit a diya, and opened the first letter. It was dated 20th September 2025. Arjun wrote about the cold floor, the tasteless doll, the bars on the window, Neha in the women's jail, the stitching work, the small prison temple, his prayers, his request for 1 line in return. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly, placed it back in the envelope, and cried until the diya went out. More letters came, each longer, each rawer. He asked for nothing but one sign that I still considered him my son. On 15th November, Raghav rolled his wheelchair to the temple room. He held up a painting. 2 stick figures flying a yellow kite. Under it, written in shaky letters, 1 word, Arjun. He pointed to the steel box. For the first time in 26 years of marriage, Raghav was asking me to forgive. I told him, he has to earn the door, not just knock on it. That night I wrote my son 8 lines. I told him about the painting, about the tulsi, about the 15 seconds. I told him I had not forgiven, but I had started remembering the little boy with the lost parrot. 3 weeks later his reply came. He cried. He enrolled to teach other prisoners. He remembered how to patch a kite. He said he would wait as long as the tulsi grows. I showed Raghav the letter. He pressed it to his forehead. Outside, the mountains stood quiet. Part 7 ends here. The door is still closed, but the key is now in my hand. The wooden box arrived on a Tuesday, carried by a prison van that stopped at the bottom of our hill because the driver said the road was too narrow for government vehicles. 2 wardens walked the last half-kilometer, one of them holding the box like it was made of glass. It was the size of a shoebox, made of rough teak, unpolished, still smelling of the jail workshop. My name was carved on the lid in uneven block letters. Ma Kamini Sharma. Underneath, smaller and shakier, from prisoner 4782. Tihar Jail Number 7. Raghav wheeled himself to the gate faster than he had moved in months. The children who usually play on our steps scattered when they saw the uniforms. I signed the receipt with a trembling hand. Inside the house, I placed the box on the dining table. Raghav touched the lid gently and nodded. Open it. First came a letter, soft from being folded too many times. Ma and Papa, everything inside this box is made by my 2 hands in the last 4 months. I worked by torchlight and earned every scar. I do not ask forgiveness with this box. I only ask you to remember that the hands which locked the door are also trying to learn how to open doors again. Your son, Arjun. The 7th of December 2025. Inside were 4 objects. A tulsi planter carved from teak with delicate jolly work and the words, "May every leaf remember mercy." Inside was jail soil and a tiny tulsi sapling. A walking stick for Raghav made of rosewood with a parrot-shaped handle and the words, "For the father who taught me to stand." A photograph of Arjun in prison uniform holding the half-finished tulsi planter. And a cloth doll stitched from prison uniform with 2 tiny blue button eyes and the word Ma on its chest. At the bottom was a peacock feather with a note saying it belonged to me. Raghav placed the doll in my lap and rested his head on my knee. That evening I planted the jail tulsi beside my mother's tulsi. I placed the walking stick beside Raghav's chair. And I wrote the longest letter of my life to my son. I told him about his father standing again, about the tulsi growing, about the doll watching me sleep. I told him both the boy and the man live inside him, and that one day the boy may win. 2 weeks later another parcel came with a tiny wooden heart carved from teak. On one side it said Ma. On the other side it said 2034. I hung that heart around my neck. It rests exactly where my son once rested his head. Part 9 ends here. The tulsi plants are almost the same height now. So is hope. August 18, 2026. Exactly 1 year since the iron door slammed shut behind us. I woke at 3:17 a.m. without any alarm. My body has never forgotten the minute we fell into the lane and the world opened again. Raghav was already awake, sitting in his wheelchair by the window, the parrot head walking stick across his lap like a sword. He looked at me and lifted 2 fingers. 2 slow beats. Pause. 2 more. Our old code. I love you. I dressed in the same pale blue cotton sari I had worn the night we escaped. Around my neck hung the tiny teak heart on its black thread. In my purse, the original storeroom key. We took the early morning Deccan Queen, then a hired car to Delhi. Sunil traveled with us. The driver stopped at the exact spot where the milkman had found us. I placed a garland of marigolds on the roadside and whispered thank you to the night that refused to kill us. We reached Greater Kailash. The house stood freshly painted for auction. The court allowed me 1 day to take what I wished. I walked through rooms that no longer knew me. Raghav waited in the car. Some doors should never be re-entered. I went alone to the storeroom. The iron door was gone. A wooden one stood in its place. I used the old key on the new lock. It did not fit. I opened the door and stepped inside. The room was clean, white, innocent. I closed my eyes for 1 full minute and let every memory pass through me. Then I took the tiny teak heart from my neck and pressed it into the wall where the secret panel once was. Let no one who enters this room ever again lock another human being inside any kind of prison. When I came out, the agent asked if I wanted to take anything. I said, the house kept what it needed. That night we sat near India Gate eating ice cream. At 9 p.m., the phone rang. Ma? Quote, it was Arjun. I count 1 minute of silence every day for every minute you were locked inside, he said. Raghav took the phone and spoke his first full sentence since the stroke. Enough counting. Beta. Start living. I told Arjun we would come for visiting day. We would bring Gajar halwa. Sunday came. Tihar jail visiting room. Arjun fell at his father's feet. Raghav placed his hand on his head. Arjun ate the halwa with tears falling into the sweet. When time ended, Arjun said, next year I will bring the shirt I stitched for Papa. And I will plant tulsi seeds when I come home. Neha's letter arrived later. She had started teaching women to read. She said she would wait outside our gate when her time was less. Raghav and I walked out of the jail holding hands. The parrot stick tapped the ground like a heartbeat. The storeroom is empty now. So is the prison in my chest. Every bush we had planted along the path exploded into gold at the same moment. The air turned thick with their scent. The village children raced up the hill shouting that the mountain had decided to throw a party. Raghav and I stood on the veranda at sunrise. He took my hand with steady fingers and spoke the first full sentence without effort in 3 years. Our boy is coming home today. Arjun's early release came 6 months ahead of schedule. He stepped off the bus wearing a white kurta pajama he had sewn himself. When he saw us under the gulmohar tree, he ran the last 20 meters like a 7-year-old chasing a kite. He touched Raghav's feet, then mine. Neha was not with him. She chose to wait. Inside, the wall held Raghav's newest painting. 4 stick figures and a sky full of kites. Under it he had written, Family, the 15th of October 2027. We ate breakfast together. Arjun said a prayer of gratitude. Then he placed a wooden Ganesh and a fresh peacock feather on the veranda. From his bag he took out the cloth doll with blue button eyes. Its prison uniform was replaced with a yellow dress he had stitched. That afternoon the tailoring shop opened. Kamini and Raghav Tailoring. Free uniforms for children who need them. By sunset Arjun buried the original storeroom key beneath the soil and planted a marigold seed. Above it, that night I removed the teak heart from my neck and placed it on Raghav's painting. I wrote one final letter with no address. The gate will stay open. Under the moonlight, marigolds glowed like tiny suns. 3 generations. 1 heartbeat. No betrayal is final. No forgiveness is instant. Every seed planted in pain can bloom into light. The storeroom is buried. The gate is open. The boy came home. And the marigolds bloomed this morning.